Afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Fantastic. My voice is a little bit hoarse from last night from the U2 gig, but we'll get through this together. So we're here to learn about 6 practical tips to improve your Salesforce testing. So this is how to get better at unit testing. That's built into the platform that we all have to do. We all have to get to that 75%. But I think that's kind of the wrong way to think about it. You know, we want to start thinking about how to write really great tests, and we've come up with 6 practical tips that'll hopefully just improve your Salesforce testing, so something you can just take away. A little bit about me first. So I'm the CEO of a company called Gearset. We do release management, but in developing Gearset, we obviously had to write quite a few tests, and we came up with this test runner. Because it's a real learning experience for us, we thought we'd share some of that stuff. If you want to connect with me later, you can do so on Twitter or LinkedIn, all the usual stuff. So first of all, a little tiny bit of context on sort of unit testing in Salesforce. I suspect, given the audience I'm speaking to, that we can breeze through this. So first of all, Salesforce is like a whole new generation of platform. There's a whole new way of working. And it's provided unprecedented flexibility. So there's changes you can make in production that don't need to go through the entire software development lifecycle, and that's a good thing. We've also got things like Trailhead, and you've got a whole new generation of developers that have come to development in a new way. So, to build fantastic apps now, you don't need to have a computer science degree or a software engineering background. You can come from any area of the business, transition in, and build great software, build great apps. But some things never change, and safely managing change is still critical in the world of Salesforce, and probably even more so with Salesforce because it's such a mission-critical platform. If anything goes wrong with your Salesforce instance, then bad things can definitely happen. When things do go wrong, as they inevitably will, it's not easy to do rollback. So it's really, really important that we have great tests that will give us confidence. So when we think about why we should do testing, it is all about this giving us confidence. But for so many people that we have spoken to, it's actually about this screen. It's about getting to that 75%. It's about getting my deployment to happen right now. And we're sort of trying to shift things a little bit. So why should you write great First of all, it's about protecting your development investment. We spend a lot of time, money, and energy writing these apps and building up our CRM, and it's important to be able to protect that. It also gives us a great way to accurately represent business requirements. So obviously when you get a change request or you speak to a business user that wants something implemented, you do as much requirements gathering as you can, but things always slip through and they're never quite right. And having great tests allow you to just codify exactly what a given feature is supposed to do. It also helps Salesforce. You probably saw in the dev keynote this morning, they run, for every release they run 108 million unit tests. It helps them move fast and iterate the platform. And it also helps protect you when the platform changes, as it does with the releases 3 times a year, winter 17 just happening at the moment. You know that your tests will verify the behavior of your business processes should something not quite go right. So benefits of good tests, they catch problems early while they're easy to fix. So if you write a test at the same time you're writing the feature, and don't just do it for code coverage reasons, but do it to get the thinking out of your head and into the machine, then when problems arise or when developers start to merge and have conflicts with each other, then you can catch those problems and fix them while that information's all fresh in your head. It proves our code works and provides evidence of progress. So, we all try to do things as agile as possible and split things up into small, manageable chunks. But a feature, if it takes a while, you might not get to see that end user value for a number of sprints. And writing tests proves that the work you're doing this week works and provides evidence that you're moving towards your ultimate end objective. It also helps keep us honest. If we have to write tests, then we have to really think about what we're doing. We have to document it, and that's sort of generally a good thing. And ultimately, all of this just reduces risk. We all move very fast. The platform provides lots of flexibility, and in making changes, we want to be able to make sure that we can make those changes safely. And that, reduced risk still benefits you down the line. So you bring some new people onto your team, or, and I speak for myself, even if I come to a piece of code I wrote even just a few weeks ago, it's really helpful to be able to have those tests to run to help me understand what I was doing when I did that code originally. And so what are the problems with bad tests? They're a maintenance headache, and I think it's really fair to say that bad tests are worse than no tests at all, because they slow you down, they trip you up, they confuse you, they confuse people that have just joined the team. So really that maintenance is just a real burden. It provides you with a false sense of security. So, people that are writing tests that just get that code coverage metric, you sort of lie to yourself and you say, hey, I've got great test coverage, I can make this change safely, and then you sort of kick yourself when you introduce the bug. So you're better off just not having them there in the first place. And you may be testing you may not be testing the correct behavior, so you may not be testing the thing that you actually intended to test. Ultimately, these things, and that's sort of how they came into my sphere of influence so much, they stagnate and they become a blocker to deployment. So if every time you come to do a deployment, if you have to write a load of fix-ups for your tests, then that just slows you down because you're fixing things that aren't part of your current work stream. So now we get on to the meat of things. I want to give just 6 practical things you can do to improve your tests. Some of these are just general to unit testing across any platform, and some of them are specific to Salesforce. So I'm going to jump straight into the first. Oh, actually, before I do, I should say there'll be a little bit of code here. We'll show some code snippets. Hope everyone's comfortable with that, but I'll explain it as I go. The first is isolation. So it's kind of a core tenet of any good unit testing or testing generally practice across any platform. And what this really means is the test should describe and set up everything it needs to test the behavior. In Salesforce, that's use the see all data as false. This is the default now, but you should still just put this in my opinion, just to make sure that everyone knows this test has everything it needs to test the behavior. The worst thing you can have is, if changing data in the environment caused your test to start fail, or if the tests fail sporadically, it's just no good. Arrange, act, assert. So this is sort of standard across the industry as well, across many platforms. But it's just good practice to get into if you don't do this. Just put the comments in. This is the arrange section. That's where you set up everything the test is going to need. You create any records that you're going to verify. Act is where you actually then do the action. You insert that record, or you exercise a trigger, do whatever has to be done. And then an assertion at the end. So you very often see tests that don't have assertions, and not very often, but you sometimes see tests that don't have assertions. And this is sort of a waste of everyone's time. If your tests don't have an assertion, then what are you verifying? You should be doing arrange, act, assert, and verifying that the behavior is correct. Run tests as real user profiles. So as you probably know, when we run tests, they'll run in the system context, and it's important that you create a user that they run under so that you can verify that all of your code and your workflow rules will all work as expected when run under that particular user. Very easy to do. You just call create user, and you can see you can set up whatever level of access and things that user needs to have, whatever time zone they're in, all that kind of thing. Test.startTest and Test.stop test. Again, very simple. You can see here I've actually explicitly called out the arrange, act, and assert, but sort of hidden everything that this test is doing. So do your arrange. That gets you under the set of limits that the test is running under. then called Test.startTest. This gives you a new set of governor limits and makes sure that your test, won't fail sporadically, will actually behave the way they will when you go to production. And finally called Test.stop test. This will reset back to the original governor limits. But more importantly, the most important thing that Test.stop test will do is make sure that any asynchronous code that's been kicked off, either as a feature method or a queued apex, will actually finish. So then you can, when you go into your assertion phase, you know that any asynchronous things will have happened. Fifth is to exercise bulk trigger functionality. So this isn't really about testing the performance of the system, because obviously when you're testing, you don't know quite what environment you're going to be running in. It's just about verifying the correctness of your code. So you want to do things with calling them with more than one object, triggers and things with more than one object, to verify that when you're called like that your code does what it's supposed to do and can handle it. Sort of rule of thumb we use just in the team is to have 10 to 20 objects. But again, it's not about performance testing. It's all about the correctness testing. So hopefully if you've done these 5 steps, it's not an exhaustive list, but it's a few things that you can do to improve your tests and get them so they're verifying the correct behavior, they work reliably, and they're testing what you actually want to test. But can we go further? So Salesforce by default doesn't have that nice test automation. So what you're seeing is if someone changes something like a validation rule in production, then tests can start to fail or code coverage can start to drop. It can be slow to get feedback on your changes. So you got the dev console and ways to run tests, but it's hard to share that with the team. I've said this a few times, but good code coverage doesn't mean good tests. So what you want to do is have tests that run reliably, test the correct behavior, and as I said earlier, changes made by end users in production can cause failures, and you don't get to find out about that until you come to do a deployment or something. So really, you want all of these tests to be running the code you've written to be verified on an ongoing basis, so continuously. So what I'm going to show you now is automated testing with Gearset. This is completely free. So although we are a vendor, everything I'm about to show here is totally free. You can get set up with. So a tiny bit of background on Gearset first. We're a release management platform for Salesforce. We help compare orgs, reconcile changes, migrate differences, sort of think about it like chain sets on steroids. And then as you start to bring in more process into your team, we're there with you to do things like continuous integration, source control. We're standing over there, so come and visit the booth. But for what I'm going to show you now is our automated testing. So to get started with Gearset's testing, you just go to Gearset.com. We're on the App Exchange as well, but this is an easier way to get to us. The URL's shorter. Go to Gearset.com, and normally we have a big Try It Now button, but we're here celebrating Dreamforce, so we're using a picture of that. Click Login or click Try It Now, and you're taken over to the app. Once you're here, you can log in with Salesforce creds, something that you use for either Trailhead or the Success community, or you can log in with Google. So I'm going to log in with Google for this demo. And this just does the OAuth dance if the Wi-Fi survives. It has, hooray. This just does the OAuth dance to come over to Gearset, where you're presented with the homepage of the release management product. You connect your orgs either here or on the Manage Orgs page. You can just do Add New Organization and add the organization where you want to, is it visible? And add the organization that contains the test that you want to run. So typically for a lot of our users, this is production, because production's the place. You've run the tests in development anyway, using the dev console, using Maven's Mate, whatever it is you're doing. You've migrated them to production, and now somebody has made a well-intentioned change directly in production, and that's caused your test to fail. Were they running? So we'll authorize a production org here, which I've already got set up. And then we'll jump over to the test scheduling. So the test scheduling allows anyone on my team to get an overview of everything that's happening with my unit tests across my different environments. To set up a new one, I just go to Add New Job. I provided a name. So this is my Dreamforce demo. Choose the organization where you want the tests to be monitored. So let's choose this DF16 one. Specify a code coverage threshold. So obviously, things all go south when you hit 75%. But even as you get towards 75%, you're not having a good day. So it's really great as a team if you can agree, 80, 85%. That's where we want to be. So we'll set 85 because that's kind of realistic, and we can stick to that. And then you choose the notification settings. So this is how Gearset will notify you if your tests start to fail or if the code coverage starts to drop below the team agreed threshold. So we can be notified on every single run or only when the tests fail. You can get an email. So this could be, just myself if it's one of my orgs, or perhaps if this is important enough, I want to make sure my whole team are aware. So if the code coverage starts to drop below the threshold that we all agreed, or if my tests have started to fail, then hey, I want everybody to know so we can fix it. We can send text messages to your cell phone. We integrate with Slack, which is the super chat app that's here in San Francisco that's worth about $1 trillion now. Or you can integrate with Chatter. And again, it's all about just surfacing that information to the entire team in whichever place your teams hang out, that's where you need this information to be. You then press save, and that's it. So you can see there it's taken me 6 clicks to set up test monitoring. Every single night, Gearset will run all of my tests for me. Hopefully they're all nice and green all the time and our code coverage is perfect. But if anything starts to drip, then we'll get notified. If we take a look at what that looks like, let's see. I've got this one that's been running for the last almost a year now. So I should say we launched this about 7 months ago, and in that time we've seen tremendous uptake because it's free and it sort of just provides you with useful information. So I think when I checked before I came out, we've run upwards of, I think it was 5 or 6 million tests at this stage. So I should also say of those 6 million tests that we have run, there are about 250,000 failures. So that's hopefully 250,000 test failures that people have been told about, ahead of time. If I dig into the monitoring, I can see that the current status is that my tests are all passing. But if I look earlier today, then there was a test failure. So earlier today, I'll have got an email, I'll have got a Slack message, I'll have had a post on Chatter that said, hey Kevin, your tests have started to fail. You should go and look at that. If I click on the link in the email or the Slack message, then it brings me over to here. I can see all of my tests that are passing, but to be honest, I don't really care all that much about my passing tests. I want to go straight to my failing tests. Here I can see it's failing. I can see that the full stack trace, why it failed. I can see the assertion message. This is why it's key to have that arrange act assert, the good assertion messages. It means that things like monitoring later will work and be an aid to show you a guide to show you where to go to hopefully fix things. So that's the test monitoring. Totally free. Set it up. Give us feedback on it. So I'll just finish off here. I think it's important that you really get out of that mindset of, if you're in that mindset, that is, that 75% is this target or this thing that you have to hit, that there's value in writing great tests, in and of itself. I'll post these slides afterwards in the Chatter group, But we also have a blog on the Salesforce developer blog where we have all the code snippets and all of these tips in a bit more detail for you as well. As I said, we're much more than just unit testing. This is something we sort of want to do to share with the community, but the day job is that we do release management. We're just over there. You should come and talk to us afterwards. And that's me. Thank you very much. Remember, don't be lured by 75% and strive for great tests. Thank you. If there's any questions, just come and grab me afterwards.